Why we attract what we fear. You will think it's coincidence. You'll say it's bad luck, or karma, or the universe testing you. But what if I told you that what you called bad luck in love is not fate? It's your unconscious mind trying to reveal itself to you. Some women spend years running from the same kind of pain, only to fall right back into its arms, different face, same wound. They meet a man who seems safe, yet soon he mirrors the same abandonment, the same control, the same quiet humiliation they swore they'd never experience again. It feels like betrayal, but at its core, it is reflection. According to Jung, what we fear most is not outside of us, it lives inside us, buried beneath layers of denial and survival. The psyche has a strange way of guiding us back toward what is unhealed, as if it insists on completing a circle. The soul craves wholeness more than comfort. So it summons situations, lovers, and losses that reawaken the very feelings we've tried to bury. Fear becomes a magnet, pulling us toward the unintegrated shadow we refuse to face. A woman who fears rejection often chooses those who cannot fully see her. She gives her softness to men who are still lost in their own mirrors, hoping that if she can make them love her, she'll finally prove she's worthy. Yet every time she bends, molds, and bleeds herself into a shape that fits their emptiness, the universe whispers, "Not yet." Look deeper. It is not punishment. It is an initiation. The patterns that break you are the same ones that can awaken you. Until you turn around and face what terrifies you, the loneliness, the unworthiness, the ache of not being chosen, you will continue to find it wearing 1,000 different faces. What appears as fate is often just the unconscious trying to make itself known. Fear is the shadow's compass. It points to the place where your freedom lives. But the ego resists, it wants control, predictability, validation. The soul, however, seeks truth. So it conspires to shatter the illusions that keep you small. When life takes away the man you thought you needed, when your plans collapse, when the love you gave dissolves into silence, it is not cruelty. It is revelation. The Stoics taught that what we fear holds power over us only because we refuse to see it clearly. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, Seneca wrote. Fear creates illusions. It paints monsters on the walls of your own psyche. But once you turn toward them, they shrink. Once you name the fear, I am afraid I'm unlovable, I am afraid to be alone, I am afraid of being unseen, it begins to lose its hold. Every fear is a mirror. Every heartbreak is a teacher. The people who trigger you most are not your enemies. They are messengers of your shadow, carrying fragments of the self you abandoned long ago. The work is not to escape them. The work is to understand why you called them in. When you see that the universe is not cruel but intimate, that it mirrors the exact vibration of your inner state, you begin to awaken. What you attract is not punishment, but resonance. You attract what matches the story you secretly believe about yourself. Change the story, and the world rearranges itself around you. She begins to see that every encounter, every betrayal, every tender beginning that ends in silence is not random, it is choreography. A divine design meant to reveal where she still trembles before her own reflection. The universe is not cruel, it is precise. It mirrors her vibration with an almost surgical accuracy, offering her endless chances to wake from the dream of victimhood into the truth of power. The woman who fears abandonment will attract those who disappear. The woman who fears control will draw those who dominate. The woman who fears rejection will find herself constantly performing for love. It is as though life keeps pressing its finger against the same bruise, asking softly, "Will you finally see where it hurts?" Each repetition is an invitation. But the ego doesn't understand the language of the soul, it only knows blame and defense. It says, "He hurt me." It doesn't see that the deeper wound existed long before he arrived. He was merely the mirror reflecting it. When the lesson is not learned, the pattern continues, escalating in intensity until awareness dawns. This is how the unconscious speaks, through repetition, through emotion, through pain that insists on being felt. The shadow, in Jung's language, is not evil. It is the part of the psyche that has been denied the light of acceptance. It holds the instincts, the desires, the vulnerabilities that one has learned to suppress in order to survive. But what is buried alive never dies, it merely hides. And from the dark, it calls out through projection. So she projects. Onto him, onto others, onto the world. The fear of betrayal becomes suspicion, the fear of being unseen becomes control. The unhealed child inside her governs her adult choices. And the world, obedient to her unconscious script, keeps fulfilling the prophecy. The same endings, the same ache, the same haunting familiarity of pain, like an echo she cannot silence. Yet within that cycle lies the seed of awakening. For the first time, she pauses. Instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" she whispers, "What is this trying to show me?" That single shift in question turns the key. She begins to look inward, not outward. She dares to meet the face of her own fear, not as an enemy, but as a lost child asking to be held. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate. To love what happens not because it is easy, but because it is yours. Because every experience, especially the painful ones, reveals something about your inner structure. Acceptance does not mean submission, it means clarity. When you no longer resist your fear, you stop feeding it. Slowly, she sees that her fear was never the enemy. It was the guardian of her boundaries, the echo of her unmet needs, the residue of her past selves. The man who triggers her abandonment is not just a lover, he is a mirror calling her home to herself. When she stops running, the mirror changes. The reflection softens. The same energy that once attracted chaos now calls in peace, for she no longer vibrates at the frequency of fear. Healing is not becoming invincible, it is becoming intimate with what once terrified you. It is saying, "I see you," to every wound, until it no longer needs to scream for attention through the faces of others. And in that quiet recognition, she begins to attract differently, not from fear, but from fullness. The transformation does not happen in a single revelation, but through countless small deaths, the death of illusions, of attachments, of the identities she built to feel safe. It is the death of the savior archetype, the caretaker, the pleaser, the parts of her that believed love must be earned through sacrifice. She begins to see that her constant giving was not pure generosity, but a quiet plea for validation. Every time she overextended, she was trying to prove her worth to someone who could never give it, because that worth had never been missing to begin with. In Jungian terms, this is the process of individuation, the integration of opposites within the psyche. The meeting of the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow, the feminine and the masculine. The woman who once sought external approval starts to cultivate her inner authority. She realizes that her longing for the emotionally unavailable man was, at its root, her own disconnection from the inner masculine, the aspect of self that provides structure, direction, and safety. Without that inner grounding, she mistook chaos for passion and silence for mystery. But as she strengthens her inner masculine, through boundaries, self-respect, and discipline, she begins to attract men who do not require her to shrink. The dynamic changes because her vibration changes. What once felt magnetic, the chase, the emotional turbulence, the unpredictable validation, now feels heavy, outdated, unworthy of her energy. The Stoics would say that she has begun to master the only realm she truly controls, her perception. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When she no longer sees herself as a victim of circumstances, she stops being painted in the hues of fear. The outer world adjusts itself to her new shade of awareness. Still, healing is not linear. There are days when she slips, when old patterns whisper seductively, promising comfort in the familiar pain. But she knows now, familiarity is not safety. Repetition is not love. So she pauses, breathes, observes the impulse instead of obeying it. That is mastery, not the absence of fear, but the freedom to act despite it. The paradox is that what she once feared most, loneliness, rejection, the unknown, becomes her greatest teacher. Solitude, once unbearable, now feels sacred. It becomes the temple where she meets her true self, not the version shaped by society's expectations or men's desires, but the raw, untamed consciousness beneath all masks. She learns to hold herself the way she once wanted others to hold her, gently, but firmly, with presence, not promises. In that embrace, the inner child stops begging for love and starts to rest in it. The world outside shifts again, men appear, but she no longer loses herself in them. She listens to their words, but also to her body's wisdom, her intuition's quiet knowing. Fear no longer dictates her choices. It becomes an advisor, not a ruler. When it speaks, she listens, not to obey, but to understand. Each fear points her to a part of herself that still wants to be seen, accepted, integrated. And that is the essence of shadow work, not destroying the darkness, but bringing light into it. When she can say, "Yes, I am capable of need, of anger, of longing," she is no longer ruled by them. Wholeness replaces perfection. She no longer attracts what she fears, because she no longer fears what she is. In this new space of awareness, love begins to look different. It is no longer the firestorm that consumes her, but the hearth that warms her. Passion is not chaos, it is presence. Connection is not control, it is communion. The woman who once mistook intensity for intimacy now recognizes peace as the highest form of love. But this evolution did not come without fire. Every heartbreak, every night of confusion, every unanswered message was a forge. She was being tempered, not broken. The universe was refining her through contrast, teaching her to discern what love is by showing her what it is not. Pain, when faced consciously, becomes purification. It burns away illusion, leaving only truth. In Jungian language, this is the return from the underworld, the integration of shadow into consciousness. She has descended into her fears, faced the demons of her own making, and emerged not untouched, but transformed. The woman who once sought completion in others now radiates from wholeness. She does not chase, because she knows that what is truly hers cannot be lost. There is a quiet power in her presence now, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Her energy speaks before she does. When she walks into a room, there is a grounded calm that draws attention not from seduction, but from resonance. Others feel it, that unshakable peace born from self-intimacy. She has become magnetic, not because she is trying to attract, but because she is no longer leaking energy through fear. Fear feeds fragmentation. Love, when rooted in self-awareness, restores unity. The universe always mirrors this principle. When she was divided within herself, desperate to be chosen, afraid to be abandoned, she attracted others who confirmed that division. Now that she has reconciled with her own shadow, life reflects integration back to her. There are moments when old patterns test her strength, but she no longer collapses. She observes them with compassion. She understands that the mind is a creature of habit. It clings to the known, even when the known is pain. But awareness breaks the loop. She sees the old story rise, "You're not enough." She smiles softly and replies, "I am." The Stoics would call this inner sovereignty. True power is not in controlling others, but in mastering the self. It is the calm that cannot be stolen, the dignity that cannot be negotiated. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And she has learned that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to obey it. She now understands that relationships are not meant to complete us, but to reveal us. Each partner is a mirror, each bond a lesson in love's many forms: attachment, projection, devotion, detachment. When we meet them consciously, we no longer cling, we connect. We no longer seek to possess, we seek to understand. And so, she no longer fears attraction, because she has made peace with reflection. She trusts the rhythm of life, knowing that what leaves makes space for what aligns. There is nothing to chase, nothing to prove. Only to be. Her life becomes a quiet symphony of alignment, love that doesn't demand, presence that doesn't fade, freedom that doesn't wound. There comes a time when she realizes that peace is not the absence of desire, but the presence of discernment. She no longer confuses longing with lack. Desire now moves through her like wind, gentle, alive, unattached. She can want without grasping, love without losing herself, give without depletion. This is the maturity of the feminine soul, not passivity, but poise, not surrender to others, but surrender to truth. She understands now that attraction has always been a mirror vibration. The world reflects her inner frequency. Fear once brought lessons cloaked as lovers, but love, grounded in wholeness, draws kindred spirits. Her energy no longer begs to be seen, it simply shines, quietly radiant, unbothered by whether anyone notices. That is real magnetism, effortless, unprovoked, sovereign. The old self, the one who used to ache for validation, sometimes whispers still, a faint echo from the past. But she no longer fights her. She smiles, places a hand on her heart, and whispers back, "You're safe now." That is the moment healing becomes wholeness, when you stop rejecting the parts of you that once acted from pain. Integration means that nothing inside you is the enemy anymore. The Jungian process of individuation is not about becoming someone new, it is about remembering who you were before the world taught you to be afraid. Beneath all the fear and conditioning lies a wild, intuitive intelligence, the essence of the self. It has always known your path, even when your mind could not see it. Every heartbreak, every fear, every mistake was not a detour but a direction, leading you back to that original knowing. From this awareness, she begins to see others differently. She no longer blames, she perceives. The man who ghosted her, the friend who betrayed her, the parent who withheld love, they were all playing roles in her soul's curriculum. Each one offered her a fragment of truth, how to set boundaries, how to honor herself, how to love without collapsing. She sees that forgiveness is not about excusing them, but about freeing herself from the bondage of resentment. Forgiveness is self-liberation. In the stillness of that liberation, she begins to sense the sacred geometry of her journey, every fear transmuted into wisdom, every wound turned to insight. Life has been sculpting her into alignment with her higher nature, stripping away all that was false. What remains is essence, pure, undiluted, unafraid. And from this essence, love becomes devotion, not dependency. She no longer falls into love, she rises within it. Connection becomes an exchange between equals, not a rescue mission. Partnership is not a place to hide from loneliness, but a dance between two whole beings who have made peace with solitude. The Stoics would say she has attained apatheia, not apathy, but the serene mastery of emotion. She feels deeply, but she is not enslaved by feeling. Emotion becomes information, not identity. Love flows through her without distortion because she no longer filters it through fear. She no longer attracts what she fears because she has made peace with her shadow. Fear has lost its magnetism, love has taken its place. Life, once a battlefield of unmet needs, has become a mirror of inner harmony. And so, when she looks at herself now, in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, she recognizes the woman she's become, grounded, radiant, untamed, whole. The world mirrors that wholeness back to her, as it always does. The woman who once chased love has become love itself. The woman who once begged for safety has become her own sanctuary. And the woman who once feared rejection now knows. The woman who knows her worth does not chase, she chooses.